Let's talk about something that can make or break your product. It's not the most sexiest part of your formula, but they are absolutely crucial for the safety, the stability, and the shelf life of your product. If you have a preservative failure, that means for you product recalls, maybe reputation damages, of course financial losses, and potential liability issues. That's not something that you're looking for, right? Today we are going to break down why the preservatives are non-negotiable, the most common preservative system, pros and cons for each option, how to choose the right preservative for your product, no marketing fluff, just practical information you need to make the right decision for your beauty brand. So first, your product absolutely needs preservative unless it's completely anhydrous, meaning water-free product, or it has a pH below 3 or above 9. In these specific cases, it might be optional. If you are not, here's why you need preservatives. Because there are bacteria, yeast, mold everywhere. In the air, on your skin. Once they get in your product, they multiply rather quickly. And you don't want that for your product nor your consumers because contaminated product can cause infections, also irritation or other serious health issues. Both the FDA in the US or the European Cosmetic Regulation 1223/2009 require products to be safe, meaning microbiologically stable. And the EU actually goes a little bit further by determining a microbial limit for different product types. And remember that even natural products need preservatives. Because remember that bacteria are natural too. So you need something to prevent their growth. So let's review now common preservative systems. So we have 4 main options, which are the phenoxyethanol-based systems, the organic acid blends, the traditional parabens, and natural positioned systems. So first, the phenoxyethanol-based system. Here are the pros using this system. First, it has a broad protection spectrum, which is nice, meaning that you will be able to fight against a wide range of microorganisms. Second, it works in a wide pH range between 4 and 8. Third, it is relatively gentle and tolerated on the skin. This system is also interesting because it works with most ingredients, but there are some cons, of course. Actually, it is less effective on certain molds. It needs a booster to maximize its efficiency. Third, it may cause some potential allergic reactions. And by the way, the maximum usage for this system, it's usually used between 0.5 to 1%. Let's move on to the second section, which may be interesting in a marketing point of view, the organic acid blends. This system includes a mix of benzoic acid, sorbic acid, dehydroacetic acid, and benzyl alcohol. Pros, well, they are really effective when they are properly formulated. As I mentioned, marketing-wise, it's interesting because they can be labeled as naturally derived. Thus, it's always good for products that are marketed as clean beauty. Some cons, because there are always some cons, even if it's natural. Well, depending on the preservative, you may need to adjust your pH, and they usually work well below a pH of 6. They can be more irritating for some people, and often they have a less broad spectrum than the phenoxyethanol-based system. Let's move to the third preservative system, which is, as I said, a little more controversial, but if you use it under the specific regulatory requirement for cosmetic products, it's fine, I guess. The traditional parabens. So, in this big family, you have, for example, the methyl paraben, the propyl paraben. They have been widely used in cosmetic products before. And of course, there are some great reasons for that. They are highly effective for broad spectrum protection. That's something to keep in mind. And since they have been used forever, there are decades of safety data regarding parabens in order to make sure that you will not, well, poison your consumers. It's cost effective compared to maybe other organic acid blends. Parabens are really stable in most formulations and it works in a wide pH range. That's always nice if your formulation and ingredient has specific requirements. And by the way, the usual range of use for parabens is between 0.1 to 0.8%. And finally, the last system, the natural positioned systems. The pros. Of course, they are great for a marketing story. They are consumer friendly. They fit perfectly in a clean beauty positioning. So of course, if your brand is positioned as a natural brand, it will work like a charm. Let's talk about the cons. It's natural, yes, but it is way less effective alone. And you will need to put different preservatives to have the efficiency required by the regulations. Among that, they are more expensive because natural, and they really require a careful formulation. So you may need to tweak some things during your formulation steps. And since the different ingredients may completely differ based on their stability, efficiency, the usual rate of use is between 2 to 4%, which is quite wide. So which system would you choose? Actually, there are some factors that you need to keep in mind in order to find the right preservative system for your product. And after that, I will share some practical tips that may help you make the right choice. So finding the right preservative, it definitely depends on the type of product you want to develop. If it's a high water content product, well, you will need a system with a strong efficiency for protection. Keep in mind that emulsions are more challenging regarding the preservation than simple solutions. That makes sense. And for example, if you are developing a product to put around the eyes, it will need a strong protection against microorganisms whilst avoiding irritation. It's all about balance. And a couple of words regarding packaging. If you want to use a jar for your product, well, it would need a stronger protection than, for example, a airless pump system, because the consumer will put their fingers in the product. And so if we are talking about product type, we must talk about the formulation factors. So as I mentioned, there are different pH range within which you can use the different preservative systems. And that will matter a lot when you will formulate your product. And it also plays a role when you are thinking about the manufacturing process. Indeed, you may want to consider your manufacturing method during the formulation stage. So remember that aligning your formula with your intended production method can prevent costly reformulation later. Beside the product and the packaging, of course, as I mentioned earlier, it really also depend on the positioning of your brand. If you want to develop a clean beauty brand, of course you will try to use preservatives that are either natural positioned or maybe organic acid blends. It also supports a sustainability messaging, and it meets a requirement for natural certification like Cosmos or natural. On the other hand, if you are trying to develop a cosmetic that would be more mainstream and affordable, maybe the phenoxyethanol-based system would be a good choice because of its cost to efficiency ratio. Keep in mind that the system is widely accepted by major retailers that your brands might target, and it allows a competitive pricing. But if in your case you are more interested in creating a product which is performance focused and maybe for professionals, more traditional systems like parabens with, as I mentioned, decades of data may align with your efficacy focus, because with its wide protection efficacy, the parabens will support claim for long-lasting stability. Let's not forget that they work really well with high concentration of ingredients, and they may provide robust protection for example, innovative formulations. And finally, some practical considerations. Well, the system that you will choose also depend on your budget, on the retailer requirements, and your target market preferences. But how would you know if the preservative system that you have chosen for your formula is efficient? There is a specific test that is required in order to answer to this question: the preservation efficacy testing. I think it's also called the challenge test. What will be the goal of this test? Well, to intentionally contaminate your product with different strains of microorganisms. So will be added bacteria. For yeast, we will add a little bit of C. albicans, and for the mold, a dash of A. brasiliensis. Remember to request the preservation efficacy testing result from your manufacturer. Include this test that is a non-negotiable in your budget, and keep a documentation of all the results. Don't try to formulate a preservative system at home, since it's a crucial element of your formulation that can make or break your product launch. Just ask formulators or maybe manufacturers or chemistry experts. Talk about your formulation, your goal, your brand positioning, and your budget, and they may recommend you a system or another. Remember to keep every document in a file, because that data that you will need to put in your product information file. Depending on the preservative system that you will choose, you may need to adjust the other ingredient in your formulation. As most important as the preservative is, it's only one ingredient in the 10 most used ingredients in formulation. For the other 9, you can watch this video.